Okay, so this is the Math 2000 Week 7 Quiz Help. There we go. I should go to the first page really quick. This is the Math 2000 Week 7 Quiz Help. And here are the problems we're going to do. The first problem I could not find in the book. So this is the problem. Can somebody tell me what this graph looks like? Y equals negative 1/4 x squared minus 5. Does anybody know what this... Well, no, this is an x squared. What does it... Anybody got the shape? An x squared is a U-shaped graph, so it's a parabola. It's going to be either like this or it's like this. So all x squares, if you have a graph with an x square, it's going to be a parabola, a U-shape, or a upside down U-shape. Now, this graph here is y equals x squared, just a regular x squared graph. But if the x has a negative in front of it, then it's an upside down U, okay? Do you see how this has a negative in front of it? That means it's going to be an upside down U. It's going to be this one right here, okay? So they'll give you like pictures of different graphs. They'll say, okay, which one of these graphs is it? You can say right away that this is not the graph and this is not the graph, because the negative in front of the x squared tells you it's an upside down U shape. It's a parabola going upside down. So it's one of these two right here. Now, there's more to it. This minus 5, when there's a minus 5 on the outside, that's telling you the actual y-intercept. This graph actually touches the minus 5, the y minus 5 axis. And then it goes down. That's the vertex. And then it's going to go down from here. You see, so that minus 5 is where that graph goes down. Now, on this problem on the quiz, all you have to do is pick the correct graph. Now, if there are a couple graphs that go down from the negative 5, if this was the graph, your problem's not going to be exact. A minus 5 puts it at negative 5. If this was a plus 3, this number was a plus 3, your graph would be over here by the plus 3. Right? I just want to make sure everybody understands that. That minus 5 or plus 3 is where your vertex is on the y-axis. Now, if you have a couple of graphs that are the same, I recommend plugging in some numbers and verifying where they are on your graph. So this is minus 1/4. If you plug a 1 in for the x, then do the math. 1 squared is 1 minus 1/4. So I have a negative 1/4 and a minus 5. I get y equals negative 5 1/4. And if you go to x equals 1, negative 5 1/4, do you see is somewhere about right there? The plot x. All coordinates have x and a y. The x is 1. And when you do the math, y equals 5 1/4. So this point right here is 1 5 1/4, and that's how you would determine which graph it is. So just know this is your vertex. A negative makes your graph go upside down. A positive makes it go right side up. And then plug in a couple of points to make sure you have the right graph. So that's one of them, and I couldn't find anything in the book, in this section on that. It's in the book, but it's not in this section. Everybody okay with that? Good. Okay, now there's about 4 problems, 4, maybe 5 problems, at least 4, where you have to factor 3 terms. So these are 3 terms, and we're going to solve for x, and we're going to factor these. So these don't even count. These don't count as problems. These are just extra. I want you to be able to factor before you can. When we factor 3 terms and solve for x, step number 1 was take the last term and find all pair that multiply together to equal the last term, 36. So we need all pairs that multiply to equal 36. 1 times 36 is 36. What else multiplies together to equal 36? 6 times 6 is 36. Any more? 2 times 18 is 36. 4 and 9, you're right. 4 and 9 is 36. Anything else? There's one more. 3 and 12 is 36. So when you factor 3 terms, the first step is find all pair that multiply together to equal the last term. Now we're going to use one of these pair to add or subtract to equal the middle term. Out of all of these pairs, which one, if I take away the subtractions, take away the multiply, I'm going to take away the multiply, which one will add or subtract to equal the middle term? And I heard some, exactly. Now, we need to get a negative 5. What signs do I use to get a negative 5? Out of the 4 and 9, how do I get a negative 5? Do you see how a plus 4 and a minus 9 give me a negative 5? When you add the 2 up, it has to equal the middle term, negative 5. When you multiply, it has to equal the last term, negative 36. A positive 4 times a negative 9 is a negative 36. A positive 4 and a negative 9 adding is a negative 5. So my answer is 2 parentheses equals 0. And since we have an x squared, we're going to put an x and an x here, and then use our pair, a plus 4 and a minus 9. So that's how we factor. And then we use that 0 multiply rule. And this was, I think we went over this last week also, the 0 multiply rule. Is when you multiply 2 parentheses together and the answer is 0, either x plus 4 has to equal 0, or x minus 9 has to equal 0. And how do I get 4 to the other side? We're solving for x. Yeah, it's add 4, so we subtract 4, and we get x equals negative 4. Here, I'm going to take the 9 to the other side by adding 9, and we get x equals 9. And here are my 2 answers solving for this. X equals negative 4 and x equals 9. Okay, so these aren't on the quiz, but you're going to have to do this in a second. So I'm going to do this next one again. So first, to factor this, find all pairs that multiply together to equal 100. 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 5 times 25, 10 times 10, and I think I'm missing one. Anybody? This is 4 times 25, sorry. And we're missing 5 times 20. 5 times 20 is 100. Now, which pair will add or subtract to equal a plus 15? I need to get a positive 15. Do you see how it's got to be a minus 5 and a plus 20. A minus 5 and a plus 20 will add up together to equal a plus 15. And then when you multiply it, it equals a minus 5 times a plus 20 is a minus 100. So my pair is XX, and then I bring the pair down, a minus 5, a plus 20 equals 0. And we have 2 things that multiply together to equal 0. We say x minus 5 has to equal 0, or x plus 20 has to equal 0. And we solve for x, and we get the 5 to the other side. It's a minus 5. How do we get it to the other side? Do the opposite. We add 5, we get x equals 5. Here we get 10 to the other side. It's a plus 10, so we subtract 10, and we get x equals a negative 10. So we factored and solved. Here are my two answers for this one. So we're going to be doing this a couple of times. Whitney, are you familiar with this factoring? Are you okay with what we just did? Okay, good, good. Yes. Oh, you're absolutely right. I couldn't read my own writing. That's a 20, and we had to take the 20 to the other side, and that's a minus 20. Thank you. All right, so let's go back to the problems now. Here is the next problem, and this is the second one I could not find in the book, but I'm going to talk about it. But I want to do an example. So your problem's going to say the profit is this function, is this equation. For what value is your profit positive? Okay, I'm going to draw a little graph over here also. Now, do you see how this is an x squared graph? Not only is it an x squared graph, can you tell me which of these graphs does it represent? The first one or the second one? Which is a picture? Yeah, this equation. What's it going to look like? The first equation or the first graph or the second graph? No. Do you see how there's a positive in front of the x square? I'm gonna take. Yeah, I'm gonna take this back up here. I'm just gonna take this back up here and show us this again. If the x square is positive, I should have wrote it down here. If the number in front of x squared is positive, then it's going up. Do you see how this number is negative? There's a negative sign in front of the x squared, then it goes down. So if you have a positive x squared, boy, my thing is messing up already, isn't it? So if you have a positive x squared, your graph is going up. Okay, so let's get back to that. I just have to... I didn't want to do that. Oh, we're here. Okay. So I know this is not going to be my graph. My graph is going to go up. So I'm going to factor this. So when you see this and you're going to try to find for what value is your profit positive, you're going to have to factor this first. It's x squared minus 4x minus 16. So let's factor it. 1 times 16 is 16. 2 times 8 is 16. Uh-oh, I actually put the wrong numbers down. Hang on. What else is 16? 4 times 4. I meant for this to be a 6. I'm changing the number to a 6. I'm changing this number to be a 6. There we go. Okay, so which pair will add or subtract to equal 6? These are my pairs that equal 16. Which pair will add or subtract to equal a negative 6? Thank you. A positive 2 and a negative 8 will give us a negative 6. So a positive 2 and a negative 8 will give us a negative 6. That's my pair I'm going to use. I'm going to use that pair for my factor. X, X, and I'm going to put the pair in here, a plus 2 and a minus 8. Okay, so now we're going to solve for x. In other words, the x plus 2 equals 0, or the x minus 8 equals 0. I get the 8 to the other side by doing the opposite. I'm going to add 8. I get x equals 8. And I take the 2 to the other side by subtracting 2. And I get x equals negative 2. Now watch what I do with this x equals negative 2 and x equals 8. X equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's 8. 1, 2. This is negative 2. I'm going to put a dot on 2, and I'm going to put a dot on 8, on negative 2 and 8. Now, remember, my graph looks like this. It's a U shape going up. My graph has to go through those 2 points. It says, for what value is the profit positive? In other words, when is this? By the way, let me try to draw that a little bit better. I want to try to draw that a little bit better. I want it to look. It should look something more like this. There we go. And the question is, when is this profit positive? Profit is the P, is my graph. Do you see that when is this graph positive? It's positive for all this blue up here. It's positive for all this. Everything else below, it's negative. You know, this is y, -1, -2, -3, -4. So it's profit for everything above this. You have to write this in interval notation. This is -3, -4, -5. Do you see -5? You're on the graph. This graph keeps on going up. -6, you're on the graph. -7, your profit is positive. So the question is, for what value is this profit positive when x is less than -2? You see, everything less than -2, -3, -4, -5, their graph is positive. At x equals 0, the graph is negative. So anytime the graph is less than -2, and this graph is going up here, this is number 9. Do you see it's up positive here? Number x equals 10, it's positive. X is less than -2 and x is greater than 8. This is when my profit is positive. So you actually have to write this down. I think this is going to be one where you're going to have to write the interval answer like this. When is the profit positive? You have to factor it. You have to draw your graph and then say, oh, this graph goes up here. So anytime x is less than -2 or x is greater than 8, x is greater than 8, that's when my profit is positive. That's when my profit is above that 0 line. Everybody okay with that? That's actually something new that we've never had. Nothing's like that. We never had that even in 1500 either. In Math 1500. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Alright, so now we're going to actually go into some problems with the book. Those are 2 that were not in the book. Now I'm on page 526. So if you have your book handy, go to page 526, example 6. 526, example 6. Now, I'm going to do this different. It says solve by completing the square. I'm not going to complete the square because you only have to do this for one problem. I'm going to use this other method. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. Does anybody remember this? It's called the quadratic formula. I don't know if we had it this semester but we had it last semester. We're just going to plug the numbers into this equation. It says solve by completing the square. I'm not going to complete the square. I'm going to use this equation. So you want to write down this formula. -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So you want to write this formula down because you're going to need that when you get to this problem. We have to find out what A, B, and C equals. Can somebody tell me what A equals? By looking at our equation, can somebody tell me what A equals? Anybody remember? remember for quadratic equations, you can also write it like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So all quadratic equations can be written ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is the number in front of the x squared, so a is 2. B is the number in front of the x every time. B is the number in front of the x, so B is 3. And C is the number without the x. C is negative 2. So from our equation, we just pick the number in front of the x squared, the number in front of the x is B, and the number without the x is C. And we plug it into our equation here. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. And we're going to plug these numbers in. What number goes into this parentheses? Remember, we're using the formula. What number goes into that parentheses? You guys still with me? Anybody there? Hello? Oh, okay, somebody's there? April, you still there? Okay, so the number that goes into this first parentheses, is b, right? The formula is negative b. So you see this b goes here. What's b equal? B equals 3, so I put a 3 in there. This is a b also. The b is inside, so I put a 3 in there. The a is the number next to 4. A is 2, so I put a 2 into here. C is the number next to the a. C is a negative 2, so I put a negative 2 in here. And down here, this is a. And remember, a up here is 2. So you just plug the correct numbers into the correct spots. And then you do the math and you're done. X. Yes. There you go. What happened? You must... Oh, okay. All right. All right, so we have the negative 3 in front. Now, 3... on the bottom, we have 2 times 2, which is 4. I'm putting that in here. Now, I'd like everybody to try to do the math inside the square root. Try to do this math inside the square root. Put this in your calculator and see what you get. Many people get this wrong. That's why I want to make sure you're able to do that in your calculator. 3 parentheses, or I'm doing parentheses 3, close parentheses, raised to the second power, minus 4, parentheses 2, close parentheses, parentheses, negative 2, close parentheses. And what do you get when you typed it in inside of here? I get 25. Yeah, that's why I have everybody try to type that in. Not everybody don't hit enter until you're done, and make sure you're using a negative for this and a subtraction for this. Another way of doing it is we're going to do the order of operations first. 3 squared is 9, and then we're going to multiply everything together. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, and a negative, we have 2 negatives. 16, negative and negative is a plus 16. You see, the 3 squared is 9, and when you multiply all this, you get a plus 16. 9 and 16 is 25. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. You see, you want to use your order of operations. This equals 9. This part equals 9. So then you have the 9 here. Then you multiply all this together. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Negative times a negative is a positive. Now, on your test, you're done. This is what the answer is going to be. Now, right now, the answer is more, because you can take the square root of 25 and equals 5, and you can keep on going, plus or minus 5. But on your test, you're going to be done because there's nothing else to do in the square root. You might have a number like 41 that you can't take the square root of. So you'll have a different number in here. And this is what your answer is going to be. Now, be careful. I want to make sure everybody understands about this answer. If I write this answer down twice, I'm going to erase this part. This is 2 answers. Did you have a question? Oh, because your problem is going to be a little different. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and clean it back up. There we go. So your problem is going to look like this. There's going to be 2 answers. The 2 answers are x equals negative 3. Do you see you have a plus the square root of 25 over 4? Then you have negative 3, and then you got to use the minus square root of 25 over 4. So you have 2 answers here. That plus or minus in the formula means you have 2 answers. So just be prepared to look for 2 answers. Or if they show you the plus or minus in there, you know, it'll be 1 answer with that plus or minus in there. Yeah, you're typing it in your calculator incorrectly. What kind of calculator are you using? Okay, hang on. So you type in a parentheses first, and then the 3. Close parentheses. Now, how did you get raised to the 2nd power? Do you have a... Wait. No, do you have a YX button or a arrow up button on your calculator? Okay, hit arrow up and then 2. Don't hit enter. Do not hit enter, okay? We're going to type the whole thing in at once. Then minus 4, parentheses, 2, close parentheses, parentheses. Now right here, this should be a negative sign. I think it's in your lower right-hand corner. You have this plus minus button, right? Do you see a plus minus? So you want to hit that button and hit 2, and there should be a negative 2 in that parentheses now. Okay. You're hitting subtraction or something, and you're hitting them. Yeah, that's why you have to change that to a negative 2. That plus or minus at the bottom is that negative button. There you go. All right. So that's the 3rd problem. Okay, here's problem number 4. We're on page 530, number 23. Page 530, number 23. And it says use the even root property to solve the equation. So even in your quiz, I think it's going to say use the even root property to solve. That means we're going to find out what W equals. We're trying to find out what W equals. This is going to be, I think this is going to be an easy question. I say that. Can somebody tell me, this is W minus 3 over 2 raised to the 2nd power. What's the opposite of squaring something? What's the opposite of square? Exactly. So in order, we have to so step 1, get rid of square. Get rid of square by taking square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. we're going to take the square root of both sides. Square roots and squares cancel each other out. So I'm just left with now w minus 3 over 2 equals the square root of 7 over the square root of 4. This square roots for fractions, you can break them apart and have 2 square roots. Instead of 1 square root, you can break them apart and have 2 square roots. W minus 3 over 2 equals the square root of 7. What's the square root of 4 equal? 2. Now, the even root property, be careful, the even root property says this. I'm going to put a step 2 here. Make sure you have a plus or minus on right-hand side. The even root property says you're going to have 2 answers over here, 1 plus and 1 minus. Okay? Now, one more step left. Step 3. Get w by itself. I need w by itself. How do I take the minus 3 over 2 over to the other side? Exactly. You add 3 over 2 to both sides. Add 3 over 2. Watch what happens. Here they cancel. I am left with w equals, this is 3 over 2. Now, this is a square root. This 3 over 2, since this plus or minus, this 3 over 2 has to go in front. And they always go in front like this. So this is going to be 3 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 7 over 2. And we're done. That's my answer. All we're doing is square rooting both sides and taking the number that's next to the w over to the other side, and we're done. That's the answer right there. It's 2 answers. It's 2 answers. Now, also, let me write down this. This is a good answer right here. This is going to be a good answer. If I have 3 plus or minus the square root of 7 over 2, this is a good answer. Do you see how the 2 is underneath both of them? See, you can have them underneath each individually, or you can have one of them underneath the whole thing. They both mean the same thing. These are the same. These are the same. Where you have a 2 underneath each number, or you have a 2 with just a line under it. And yes, there's 2 answers. Just in case they give it, I don't know if they're going to make you do 2 answers. One is 3 plus the square root of 7 over 2. The other answer is 3 minus the square root of 7 over 2. So we do have 2 answers. It just depends on how they make you write it. They might it's multiple choice. So they might put it like this, they may put it like this, and they may put it like this. Just, you should just be able to pick out all your answers. That's over 2 right there. All right, so that was problem 4. Problem 5. Okay. Oop, what happened? Where did that go? What happened? Did I mess something up here? There's problem 5. Okay, so the next problem, you have to go back. We're going to use, they're going to talk about finding the discriminant. The discriminant. And the formula, we're going to use a quadratic equation. The quadratic formula was x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're using this equation again. But the discriminant is just the inside. So the discriminant is just the inside part that we're talking about. B squared minus 4ac. This is the discriminant. And it says find the discriminant. So we're going to find discriminant first. Find discriminant. Now, maybe I shouldn't have wrote it right there. I'm waiting for my computer to catch up with me. I pushed the button too many times. Oh, come on. Okay. So the discriminant, we want to find it. Find discriminant. So we have to find A, B, and C. A equals, B equals, and C equals. Now, can you guys tell me, and here's my equation up here. Here's my equation. What does A equal? What does A equal? Well, that let me write this down. I thought somebody was going to say that. A, wait, hang on. This is the formula, remember. A x squared plus bx plus c. A is the number next to x squared. This is written in a different. Do you see how the z square is on the opposite side? They wrote it backwards to try to trick you. Normally A is the first number. Yeah, it's in front of the z square. But they wrote the equation backwards. So A actually equals 16. It's the number in front of the x squared, or in this case, the z squared. A is always the number in front of the x squared. B is the number next to the x, and that's negative 24. And then C is the number without the x. So just be careful, because on your I picked this problem out specifically because they did the same thing on your quiz. They wrote them backwards. It's backwards. So you just have to remember A is the number in front of the z square. B is the number in front of the x, and then C is the number without the x. And now we're going to plug it in to this. We're just plugging it into the discriminant. Plug into b squared minus 4ac. So I'm going to put a parentheses, b squared minus 4 times a times c. The b part is negative 24. The a part is 16. And the c part is 9. Okay. All right, April, if you have your calculator handy, try to put this in your calculator the same way we did that before. See if you can put this in your calculator. The 24 has to be a negative 24, parentheses, raised to the second power, minus, subtract 4, parentheses, 16, close parentheses, parentheses 9. Don't hit enter until you're done. And what answer do you get? Anybody else try it on their calculator? What answer do you get? It's important you're able to do this on your calculator now, and you don't have to worry about it during the test. That you should know how to do it by then. Anybody got anything? Anybody? Anybody? I got 0. The answer should. Okay. Make sure you're using a negative symbol for the 24. You know, and make sure you have it in parentheses. Parentheses negative 24. I use that plus or that minus parentheses button at the bottom. Raise to the second. Oh, maybe there's a button that's changing the. I know there's a button on my calculator that changes the contrast and. Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. So what you should get is 0 on this. Okay. Now there's 3 things. It's going to say find the discriminant and then tell us how many solutions. Now tell us how many solutions and what kind. So there's 3 possibilities. So if your discriminant equals 0, then you're going to say you have 1 real solution. If you do the math and this is your discriminant, if your discriminant equals 0, then you're going to have 1. Why is it not? It's not writing for me again. 1 real solution. There we go. If your discriminant equals 0, you have 1 solution. If your discriminant is a positive number, you're going to have 2 real solutions. And if your discriminant is a negative number, you're going to have 2 imaginary solutions. So you have to be able to do the math correctly here, because this discriminant is going to tell you, if you end up with a negative answer, you have to say, I have 2 imaginary solutions. If you end up with a positive number, you have to say you have 2 real solutions. If you end up with 0 like we did, you have to say you have 1 real solution. So they want to know how many solutions you have. They want to know how many solutions you have, and it all depends on your discriminant. It all depends on your discriminant. And picking out the A, B, C, D. Okay, we did 5. We've got 5 more. What I'm going to do right now, I'm saving this because I'm going to yeah, let me save this first. Hang on. Part 1. I'm going to save this. Work for me. Okay, so we're on problem number 6 now. Go to page 543, example 1A, page 543. I like this problem because I think it's one of the easiest. Page 543, example 1A. It says write the equation for solutions for 6. Now, remember when we solve for x, I'm going to write something and then I'm going to erase it. Remember when we solve for x, let's say we did this. We had x plus 4 and x minus 5 equals 0, right? We got an answer, and then I said x plus 4 has to equal 0, or x minus 5 has to equal 0. And you get the 4 to the other side by subtracting 4. And you get the 5 to the other side by adding 5. Now, look at this. Do you see? This is the answer, x equals negative 4. Do you see how it's the opposite sign of this? And x equals a positive 5, it's the opposite sign that's in here. They're always the opposite sign. These are my answers. Okay? What we're going to do with this problem up here, they give you the answers. These are the answers. They want you to write equations. Oh, I do hear feedback in there now. I hear myself talking in somebody else's speaker. Oh, is that what it is? That's fine. I think, is that Whitney? Oh, if you have headphones, like for next time or something, I think that will prevent that from happening if you had headphones. Okay, but that's fine. It's not that bad. It's really not that bad. Okay, so write equations for the solutions see, this is x equals 4 and x equals 6. I'm going to write it down. X equals 4 and x equals negative 6. So what you do when you do this, step number 1, you're going to write 2 big parentheses, and it's going to be equal to 0. You're going to put an x and an x in this spot. Now, can you guys tell me what I want 4 to be in here? I want my answer to be 4. So what number goes into that parentheses? If I want one answer to be 4, what number goes in that parentheses? Remember, it has to be the opposite sign. A negative 4 has to go in there. And in this one, this is x equals negative 6, so exactly, this has to be a plus 6. And we're pretty much done now. We're almost done. So when you see this, you're just going to put the opposite sign into there. You're going to write an x and an x, and you're going to put the opposite sign in there. Okay, and then the only thing left, step 1, plug in with opposite signs. And step 2, you're going to FOIL. So we're going to go through the foiling process. Got to remember how to FOIL. Remember, x times x, x squared. X times 6 is a positive 6x. Negative 4 times x, negative 4x. And negative 4 times a positive 6 is negative 24 equals 0. Is there anything here I can combine like terms with? Exactly. 6 minus 4 is 2x. A positive 2x. And this is the answer. This is what you're looking for in the multiple choice. You know, you're going to start off by using the opposite sign of the number into there. You're going to then FOIL it, and this is going to be your answer. This is what you're going to be looking for the multiple choice. And that's the 6th problem. 4 more to go. Hang in there. We had a late start with my hold-up. We probably would have been done in an hour if I didn't have problems with my pen. I'm having lots of problems with my pen. Okay. So this problem looks crazy. I'm going to rewrite it. It's x minus 9x to the 1/2 power plus 14 equals 0. So this is a crazy looking problem. Now be careful. We're going to have crazy looking problems from here on out. If I go to my next problem, look at that. It's also crazy. So I'm going to show you how to do the crazy problems. We're just going to factor this. All we're going to do is factor this. But normally when we factor, we have, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's what we normally have when we factor. You have to have an x squared. Do you have an x squared right now? No. We're going to make an x squared. So every time we do this, we're going to make an x squared. Watch what I do. This is going to be really strange. I'm going to say x equals x squared, and then whatever's in this first spot, x, that's going to be what x squared is. Whatever's in the second spot, that's what's going to x is going to equal. It's kind of weird, but let me change it to red here. X to the 1/2 is what x equals. It's kind of weird. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to change the lettering. Instead of x, I mean u. I'm changing it to a u. Normally in math we change these to u's. So x is really u squared. Whatever's in this box, I'm going to change it to u squared minus 9, and then the x to the 1/2, I'm just changing this x to the 1/2 to u, and then I'm bringing down my plus 14. Now it kind of looks like this, right? ax squared plus bx plus c. U squared minus 9u plus 14. I can factor this now. Instead of x's, I'm just using u's. So whatever is in this first spot, this x, I changed it to a u squared. Whatever's in the first spot, you change it to a u squared. And we're going to do that every single time. And then whatever's in the second spot, you just change it to a u. The second spot was x to the 1/2, so I changed that to u. So now we're going to factor this. If you can get past the u squared and the u's, we're going to factor. We're going to go right through our factoring process. That's why I said we're going to factor a lot today. 1 times 14 is 14. What else is 14? 2 times 7 is 14. Okay, so we have all our 14s. I need to add and subtract one of these pair to equal the middle term, -9. The only way for me to get a -9, yes, is they use a 7 and the 2, a negative and a negative gives me a -9. So my factor pair is u, wait. I'm sorry. I write my 2 big parentheses. Instead of x and x, I'm using u and u. Do you see? Instead of x and x, I'm using u and u. And then I'm going to use my pair. A -2 and a -7 equals 0. And then we're going to solve. So we factored. We solve for u. And you're going to have a problem very similar to this. Now we're going to solve for u. U minus 2 equals 0, or u minus 7 equals 0. We make them both equal to 0 because, 2 numbers multiplied together and the answer is 0. One of them have to equal 0. I get the minus 2 to the other side by doing the opposite, adding 2, and I have u equals 2. Here I get the 7 to the other side by adding 7, and I have u equals 7. Now, this is not my answer. It's close, but it's not my answer. This is what u equals. We have to find out what x equals. Now, so the next step, I'm going to put a little line here, substitute what x equals. And I'm going to write it down. If we look up here, x equals u squared. X equals u squared. Oh, wait. I'm going to change that wording. It says, now substitute what? I'm going to change that. Hopefully you didn't write it, or you're going to erase it now. What u equals. We want to substitute what u equals. And if we look up here, this is my u right here. U equals x to the 1/2. So I'm going to change that. So I'm going to do this and bring it down and say u equals x to the 1/2 equals 2. U equals x to the 1/2 equals 7. You see, I just changed the u. We substituted. Substitute u for x to the 1/2. And you're gonna do the same thing. Does anybody know what x to the 1/2? What's it mean? It has another meaning. X to the 1/2 has another meaning. There's another way of writing it. X to the 1/2 power. This was back in Math 1500. We talked about this. This is the root. So a 1/2 power is really the square root of x. The 1/2 power really means the square root of x. 1/2 power really means the square root of x. They're the same thing. X to the 1/2 power is the same thing as saying the square root of x. Okay, so we substituted get x by itself. What's the opposite of square root? I'm going to rewrite that. So I want to get rid of the square root. What's the opposite of square root? How do I get rid of the square root? What's the opposite of square root? Yeah, the opposite of square root is squaring it. The opposite of square root is squaring. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Square root and square cancel. I'm left with x equals 2 squared is 4. Square root and square cancel. I'm left with x equals 49. 7 squared is 49, and there's my two answers. This is a long process. Now, if you didn't get that, we're going to do another. I think we're going to do 2 more of these, so hang in there. We're going to do 2 more of these. So if you didn't get it all the way, let's try it. Let's go to the next page. Problem number 8. So once again, it has to look strange. And do you see how this looks strange? It looks a little strange because we don't have our normal. We don't have normal is x squared, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is normal. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, I can't remember. See, I wrote it down 2 ways. I can't. I think your quiz looks like this one. These both mean the same thing. They're the same. I'm going to write down there. These 2 are the same. So I can't remember. I think this is what. I think this is the problem. Let me see. Page 550. It's opposite of what's in here. Page 550, number 57. Yeah, it looks like this. This is the problem that's on your quiz. So your quiz looks like this one. Your quiz is going to look like this one. What you have to understand is 1 over x squared is the same thing as x to the negative 2, right? If you have x to the negative 2, the negative power says flip the x, and the power stays attached to it. That's how we go from x negative 2 to this. That's how the x to the negative 2, the negative power says flip the x, but keep the square attached to it. So on the quiz, it's going to look like this. I want you to change it to this. 1 over x squared is really x to the negative 2. 1 over x is really x to the negative 1. And then we're going to go through that process. whatever's in this first spot, x to the negative 2 is really what u squared equals. And then x to the negative 1 is what u equals. And I'm changing them. This is going to be now u squared plus 1u minus 6 equals 0. So whatever's in this first spot, this x minus 2, we changed it to u squared. Whatever's in that second spot, we changed that to u. And if there's a number in front like 3, we would put a 3 here. There's no number in front, so we're not worried about it. The next step, just like we did last time, we're going to factor the u's. Find all pairs that multiply together to equal 6, 1 times 5, and 2 times 3. Which pair will add or subtract to equal a plus 1? The 1 and 5 don't add together to equal 1. 1 minus 5 is a negative 4. There we go. A negative 2 and a positive 3. The negative 2 and a plus 3 will give me a plus 1. When you multiply them, they equal a negative 6, but when you add them, it equals a plus 1. Factor, so we did that. Parentheses, put in parentheses. We're going to put 2 big parentheses equal to 0, and it's going to be a u and the u because we're using u's, and then we're going to use the negative 2 and the plus 3. Then we're going to solve for u. We're going to go through that process in solving for u. In other words, we want u minus 2 equals 0. And u plus 3 equals 0. Get the 2 to the other side by do opposite math. Add 2. U equals 2. Get the 3 to the opposite side by subtracting 3. And we get u equals negative 3. So here are my two answers, u equals 2 and u equals negative 3. But remember, we're not done. We don't want to know what u equals. We want to know what x equals. So the next step, substitute u. Up here, u equals negative 1. So I'm going to substitute the u. In other words, I'm going to change u to x to the negative 1. U is now x to the negative 1. I'm just giving myself waiting for the computer to catch up. So I have x to the negative 1 equals 2. There we go. Okay, but I don't want to know what x to the negative 1 equals. I want to know what x equals. Okay, the negative 1 says, remember the negative 1 says we're going to flip the x. The negative 1 just says, the negative sign says flip the x. So we're flipping the x. And this is what we get. But we still don't know what x equals. So what we have to do one more time, this is going to be crazy. See, the negative 1 just says flip just the x. The 2 doesn't get flipped and the negative 3 doesn't get flipped. So we have to do one more thing. Put x on top. So how do I get x on top now? What do you think I have to do to get this x to the top? Well, how about you can actually multiply it by how about this? Just to make it easy, flip it. See, this -1 says this is kind of a strange thing. This -1 says you're just flipping the x, and we did it. But if you flip it right now, watch what we do. If I flip 1 over x, I get x over 1. But remember, if you flip one side, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. 2 is now 1 over 2. If I flip this x, x over 1, I have to flip the 3, and I get a -1 over 3. So we didn't flip the 2 and the 1 because we didn't do the same thing to both sides. We just took the -1 power. The -1 power says flip it. So to get the x on top, you just flip both sides again. You just this time you're not flipping both sides again. You're just flipping both sides. Last time we didn't flip both sides. And we're done. So you flip both sides again, and you end up with x equals 1/2. Over here, you end up with x over 1 is the same thing as x. You get -1 over 3, and there's my answer. So that negative part, that was a little difficult. That negative says flip the x. We did. It doesn't say flip the 2. The negative part for power just says flip the x. But now, to get the x back to the top, we have to actually flip the x, and whatever you do to one side, when you do that, you have to do to the other. And so we flip both sides, and this is what we get. So we have one more of these problems to do. And this is the exact same thing as we just did. It just looks crazy. It looks a little crazier. Obviously, I'm going to write down crazy again. Do you see how this looks crazy? And your problem is going to look almost identical to this. There's just going to be like a different number here and here. But the problem is going to almost look identical. Now, if you look at this problem, anytime you see the crazy problems, and I wrote down crazy, I think, for 3 different problems, the last 3 problems, 7, 8, and 9, step number 1 is tell us what u equals. U, or u squared. U squared is going to equal this, the first thing. U squared equals x squared plus 2, or not, that's, hang on. Yeah, that's u squared. U squared is going to equal that. Is going to equal x squared plus 2x squared. And then u is going to equal this, right? U squared, this is u squared, and this is u. U is going to equal x squared plus 2x. So if I change this to u squared minus 11u plus 24 equals 0, I can now factor it. You see, for these crazy problems, you have to have that first as your u squared. Whatever's in that second spot next to the number is your u. And then we factor it. We go through the factor. So 3 problems we had this. There are 3 different crazy problems, but they're all the same process. 24. 1 times 24 is 24. 2 times 12 is 24. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 6 is 24. These are all the pairs that multiply together to equal 24. Which one will add or subtract to get a negative 11? Which pair will add or subtract to get a negative 11? Yeah, 3 and 8. Brittany, are you using a microphone? Oh, okay. You're so very quiet. 3 and 8 will equal 11. A negative 3 and a negative 8 equals a negative 11. Do you see, when I multiply negative times a negative, I get a positive 24. When I add them, negative 3 and a negative 8, I get a negative 11. So I'm going to write 2 big parentheses. Since we start with u squared, we're going to have u and u, and then we're going to have a negative 3 and a negative 8 equals 0. So we factored it. We're going to solve for u. In other words, u minus 3 equals 0. U minus 8 equals 0. Solve each one. This is going to be a couple of more steps. We're going to get the 3 to the other side. Add 3, and I get u equals a positive 3. Get the 8 to the other side, and I get u plus 8 plus 8. I get u equals 8. Now we're going to go back and find out what u equals. Now we're going to substitute the u. Up here, u changes to x squared plus 2x equals 3. The u changes to what we had up here, x squared plus 2x equals 8. All right, so this problem's just a little bit more. Normally, we're pretty much done, but this one, watch what happens here. We end up with x squares. We have to find out what x equals. I'm going to bring my 3 back over to this side, minus 3, and I'm left with, and I'm going to bring, oh, by the way, this is an equals, this was an equal sign, equals 8. So I want to bring my 8 over. I'm going to minus 8 to bring it over to the same side. And I am left with x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. X squared plus 2x minus 8 equals 0. You see, I have two quadratic equations. And this is crazy. We had to find x, but we're going to factor again. So this is a double factor. This is the problem on the quiz. That's the tough one. We're going to factor again. I'm going to go through the factoring process. 1 times 3. We just need a plus 3 and a minus 1. So we're going to go through that process again. X minus 1, x plus 3. We factor here, and it's 2 times 4 is 8. A plus 4 and a minus 2 will give me my factors. X minus 2, x plus 4. And then we solve. X minus 1 equals 0. Uh-oh, what happened there? X minus 1 equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. Get the 1 to the other side. Woo! Add 1, and I get x equals 1 as an answer. This is a plus 3. Uh-oh. Come on. I don't know what, maybe I'm moving too fast. Yeah, but see, but I've been really, I stopped and I started a new, I started something new. It's always when we're way past an hour already. This was x minus 1 here. Okay, I get the 1 to the other side by adding 1. So one answer was x equals 1. Here, I get the 3 to the other side by subtracting 3. So this answer is x equals negative 3. Over here, I have x minus 2 equals 0. And I have x plus 4 equals 0. There are going to be 4 answers for this problem. Add 2 to both sides. And I get x equals 2. I know, it's every time I write something it goes. Get this 4 to the other side, subtract 4, and I get x equals negative 4. So for this one, you're going to get 4 answers. You're going to see 4 answers there. Yeah, we got one more to do. One more problem to do. I apologize for it taking so long. First of all, these problems are kind of difficult. And then I started about 15 or 20 minutes late. Page 550. What was that? Okay. There we go. Oh, yes, you're absolutely right. This is a -4. Exactly. X equals -4. Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're on page 550, number 85. It's a word problem. Number 85, and you have a very similar word problem. I mean, the same. You're going to be using the same formulas and everything. Let's just remember this. Let me write down this formula. D equals RT. This is the distance. This is the speed. R is the speed. And T is the time. T is the time. Distance equals rate times time. Speed times time. It says Erin is traveling across the desert in her bicycle. Before lunch, she traveled 60 miles. So she started off and traveled 60 miles. After lunch, she traveled 46 more miles. After lunch, she went 46 more miles. Miles, not minutes. Miles, there we go. She put in 1 hour more after lunch than before lunch. So the time is X. We don't know how long she took first. But after lunch, her time was 1 hour more, X plus 1. She put in 1 hour more after lunch than before lunch. But her speed was 4 miles per hour slower than before. So her speed, her speed is R over here. Her speed is R minus 4 over here. So this is speed. I'm just going to put R, and this is the time. Maybe I should have used T and T plus 1. What was the question? What was her speed before lunch and after lunch? Okay. I'm going to not worry about the speed right now. Watch it. I'm not going to worry about the speed right now. Do you see how distance equals the speed times the time? Okay, distance and time and speed. Now, if I do this, none of the times are the same. Distance equals speed times time. Can you tell me, how do I get T by itself? What do I have to do to get T by itself? I mean, not TR. What do I have to do to get R by itself? Yes, you have to get T to the other side. It's multiplying, so you're going to divide both sides by T. So R equals D over T. So I just want to remember the speed on the first part of the trip, and then here's the speed of the second part of the trip. Now, the speed on the first part of the trip is, we already said R equals distance over time. So the speed on the first part of the trip is the distance divided by the time. The speed on the second part of the trip is the distance divided by the time for the second part. I'm going to fill in these blanks. The distance on the first part of the trip was 60 miles. Distance is 60 miles. The time on the first part of the trip was just x. Distance on the second part of the trip was 46 miles, and the time was 1 hour more, so it's x plus 1. So I want to try to get these two to equal each other, the two speeds to equal. So I want to read that again. It says this. The speed, she put in 1 hour more after lunch. The speed was 4 miles an hour slower than before lunch. So her speed after lunch was 4 miles an hour slower. Do you see? Let's say you were going 20. She was going 16 after. She was going 4 miles an hour slower. So this is the speed. The speed equals the speed minus 4, since she was going 4 miles an hour slower after. So all we have to do is put a minus 4 here, and we can say these equal. Since this is the speed, distance over r, or distance over t. This is the speed for the second, distance over t. This speed is 4 slower, the speed of 1, and then the speed of 2. The speed of 1 was r, the speed of 2 was r1 minus 4. And then we solve for x. So this is the equation we get, and we just solve for x. Step 1, multiply by the lowest common denominator. What is by the way, 4 is 4 over 1. What's the lowest common denominator here? What's my common denominator? Yeah, well, there's a 1, do you see, there's all three of these. The lowest common denominator is x times x plus 1. And if you multiply it by 1, nothing changes. See, I have 3 things on the denominator. The 1 really doesn't matter. So my lowest common denominator is x times x plus 1. You multiply, to clear fractions, you multiply by the LCD. You multiply by the LCD. Watch what happens when I multiply by the LCD. I'm going to rewrite this. And I apologize, it's really late. 60 over x equals 46 over x plus 1 minus 4 over 1. I hate to jinx myself, but the way I did it, I think I was just going to say everything's working okay. The LCD, you have to multiply everything by the LCD, and the LCD is x times x plus 1. Multiply this times x plus 1. I'm sorry, every time I write, it starts to erase. Multiply this times x plus 1. And this was an x plus 1 down here. There we go. We can cancel the x's here. We cancel this is x plus 1. We cancel the x plus 1 with the x plus 1. Nothing cancels over here. But we don't have anything left on the bottom of the fraction. There's nothing left on the bottom of the fraction. So I distribute now. This is an x plus 1. Just like always, right at the end, stuff starts happening with this. I'm trying to actually give myself some more room if I'm able to. It doesn't look like it's going to give me any more room. I'm at my limit. Oh, there's the room. There we go. Okay. I gave myself some more room. Back to the pen. So I have 60 times the x. This is the x plus 1. 60 times x is 60x. 60 times 1 is plus 60. 46 times x is left. This canceled, so I'm just left with a equals 46x. Here I have, that's 4 times x plus 1, and I'm just going to, and there's a minus here, so I'm going to put a minus 4x and then an x plus 1. So you see, I clear the fractions by multiplying each term by the lowest common denominator. Here I have to go through and distribute. I end up with negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times 1 is a negative 4x. I have a 46x. And now you need to get everything to one side. Take this over by minusing 46x. Minusing 46x. I'm putting it right underneath the other x's. Plus 4x here, plus 4x here. Those cancel. And I want a plus 4x squared. And I want a plus 4x squared over here. We're left with 0. On this side, I have 4x squared plus, okay, add all these together. 14 and 4. I think that's 18x. And I lost a lot of my work. I don't even know what that is. Plus 60. And I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to leave this here. What you do is you do this and then you factor. And you'll find out what x is. You're going to have to factor this using the AC method of factoring, or you can use the trial and error method to factor. My pen it's an hour and 40 minutes in or hour and 30 minutes, and my pen has definitely stopped working again. Usually after an hour. This time we dragged it out a little longer. I apologize for not being able to finish that last problem. My pen just won't.